What are some of the biggest things that you've learned from 2020? What are some of the things that you've been able to gather for yourself? Which kind of brings us into our big topic today. I did this knowledge bomb, and so every week I do a knowledge bomb with our inner circle, and so I did this I think probably a week and a half ago, and I got a lot of really good feedback because I prompted this knowledge bomb to a lot of our inner circle members, like, yo, I'm not calling you out, but I'm calling you out type of thing. Because I think right now with the holidays coming up and, some type of quarantine likely or some type of shutdown likely coming up, there's a lot of fear about what's going on top of COVID, on top of job security, on top of financial security, all of these things. And the thing that I have been seeing through talking with a lot of you is that you're getting stuck. And so what I wanted to help you with today was kind of just repurposing something that I taught our inner circle and something that I want for you all to really learn about your own behavior, which brings in this big thing that I want you to understand. So here's the number one thing that is likely keeping you in a place where you're continually failing or continually gaining success. And that is, my friends, the emotional cycles of change. Now, let me kind of go through this the way I did with our inner circle members so that you can understand a bit fully. So the emotional cycles of change, so you can insert any type of behavior, you can insert anything that you are currently working on. And this is generally how it's going to go. So during your first phase of uninformed optimism, so let's kind of insert any type of diet, any type of weightlifting program, any type of goal. When you don't know a whole lot, you're really optimistic, right? So if you start a new diet, if you start keto, if you start intermittent fasting, if you start a plant-based diet, it's really fun at first. You're like, you know what? This is something new. This is exciting. And this is something that I tell all of our inner circle members, like, look, in the first 30 days of your program, you're going to be really excited. You've been missing out on accountability. Well, now you have a coach pushing you. Now you have about 25 other people that are pushing you to make sure that you're continually showing up every day. If you struggle with consistency, again, it goes back to not only your coaching calls, but you're really excited because you see others being successful and you also see them trying to fail forward. If you struggled with community, or you struggled with like not having the education, these knowledge bombs really function in a way where you're like, oh my God, like I'm really excited about it. And so your uninformed optimism tells you like, oh my God, this is new. Let's do it. All right. So as the process goes on a little bit more, if you had just started a plant-based diet this past year, or keto or intermittent fasting, or whatever you're doing, you get into a point where you become more of an informed pessimist, right? And so you start to think to yourself like, damn, this is kind of hard. Like, wow, I thought this was going to be a lot easier. Right. And so here's the moment that most people get into trouble. So this usually, and this is what I was telling our inner circle members, as you get into day 60, you understand like, oh my God, it didn't take one day for me to be really uncomfortable with my body. It didn't take one day for me to be totally in this space of like, I'm pre-diabetic, or I'm at risk for heart disease. I've had some unintended weight gain. I'm not sleeping well. Like my emotional hygiene is shit. Like, it took some time to get there. And so when you become an informed pessimist, you're like, wow, this is really harder than I thought. Where most people, and this is where this is the single thing that you all need to understand, because if we get to this point where we go into the valley of despair, where you start to really question yourself, like, can I do this? Can I be successful on keto? Can I be successful on intermittent fasting? Can I be successful on 75 hard, right? This is where most people get tripped up, because they start to doubt themselves. And most people are going to quit in this space. Most people are not going to want to deal with the emotions behind actually diving into their psyche, actually diving into why they have failed in the past, right? And so what I tell people right here is, in this valley of despair, and I want to tell you the same thing, in this place of valley of despair, you have one of two choices. So you can choose not to feel the emotion of being challenged, being pushed, really, really helping you to understand, like, it's going to take you some time. I tell our inner circle members, like, this is usually months 3 to 4 for them. They are set in they have been able to establish really good high reward habits. And in months 3 to 4, this is where the actual work starts, because your mental blockages, all of the stories that you told yourself, they start to be super loud. And so you have one or two choices here. So you can choose to quit and not feel the emotion of trying to grow, or you can choose to grow, because once you decide to grow, and once you decide, whether it's through accountability through coaching or accountability through some other family members or whatever that is, once you decide to grow, you get into a point where you start to become more of an informed optimist, where you start to say to yourself, like, this is hard, but you know what? My why is strong. this is hard, but you know what? I have coaching. I have a community. I have accountability. Like I can do this. And that's where the success happens. And that's where the success of like, holy shit, I got over my emotional eating. Holy shit, I lost that first 5 to 10 pounds that I didn't think that I can lose. It's becoming harder to lose at that rate. But you know what? Like, I know I have faith in the programming. I have faith in the roadmap that my coach or Desi or whoever you work with has been able to provide for me. And you can literally insert any type of goal or behavior into this emotional cycle of change, right? Because what most people end up doing is in the valley of despair, they say, you know what? I'm done. I quit. I don't think that I have what it takes. I'm just going to go back to the next thing. So if it was keto last year, well, this year it's going to be intermittent fasting, right? I heard a lot of really great things on Noom, so I'm just going to try that. Right. And so you find yourself continually in this cycle of going from valley of despair, not choosing to grow, not choosing to progress or learn from what's going on, and then going back to uninformed optimism. Oh, like Noom has an app and it's really not that much. Like, okay, it's $150 a month. Like, all right, like, let me try this. Right. And then you go through and you understand like, oh, this is a lot harder than I thought. And then you get to a point where it's like, all right, well, do I have the accountability? Do I have the coaching? Do I have what it takes? And then you find yourself back into doing plant-based at the beginning of the year. All right. This matters. This definitely matters. And this is how this goes. When we're looking at your stages of change, if you will, your emotional cycles of change are going to tell you that you go from a pessimist to an optimist, and it kind of just goes back and forth. And so what I'm asking you today is to make sure that if you're in this place, if you're in the valley of despair, shoot me a DM. Shoot me a DM. All you have to do is be like, you know what? Like, I feel like I'm quitting on myself a lot. Can you help me with some clarity? Because oftentimes when someone doesn't have an established goal, it has a lot to do with their lack of clarity. And that's where, like, for all of our group members, you get a free coaching call that's attached to just being in this group. And so that's where we can dive into, like, what does this mean? And I think Rory wants to say.